we're going to start with the easier part, which is the message. We're going to make this functionality works first. So let's start with the message model. You're going to need an ID. This will come from Firebase. Every time someone sends a message, we're going to display an avatar. It's a string. We're going to also show who sent it. We're going to need the sender ID so we can use on our CSS. And content, this will be the actual message. We're also going to need a timestamp. That's going to be a date. Okay, we're done. Let's go to the message service and start building up our functions. First, we need to import the Firestore, both collections and document. We're going to import the message model and the authentication service so we can get the user ID. Now we need to create the reference for the collection in our database and a reference for the single message. Inside the constructors, let's import the Angular Fire and the authentication. Make it private. And a private for authentication. Of service, and also we have this imported in there. First thing we need, as always, is to get message, so we can show get message. But now let's think where it is going to be stored. We need a reference in our database for it. So let's call the collection on the top and create a reference in our database with the collection. Here, let's create our path. It's going to be chats. And here it should be like a channel reference, and then we're gonna have a message collection. Let's also add a query on this lookup. We pass the ref, and then we use the ref.orderby to order by timestamp. So we have our collection path in here, and we have our filter. So after, we just need to return this.message collection .value changes. Let's change this for channel ID, but let's make it so that we can get it from somewhere else, this ID. Let's create the send message function. And this will take a few things. Let's pass a channel ID when we send this message. Make it a string. Let's also give the photo URL, sender, let's comma in here, sender ID. So this is everything that we need for our message object and the content, also a string. So let's create an object that we can add all the information we're going to receive and then send it over to the database. Let's create a constant data, and in here we're going to build our object photo URL. We could do like this, but like this we're going to be repeating ourselves. So let's just use the new JavaScript syntax that we only added once. Sender ID, content, the timestamp. It will be a new date. So let's return this message collection. I'm gonna add, and you're gonna pass the data. After, let's just console log the result. It was successful. Message sent. Then let's catch any error. Also console log it. That message. Now we have a send function and a get message. Let's add the the send message to the button. Here we need to add the click event so we can send the message. But let's go to the chat input and create the send first. Into the chat input, and here let's start to hook it up to our service. We're gonna need to extract the channel ID from the route. We're gonna need also to import the message and the authentication service. So let's add it now. The message service, the authentication service, and the message model. Here let's add a message string to use it as a placeholder for the input. On the constructor, let's create the link to our route, message service, and the authentication service. Now we can go ahead and create a send method. Let's start to put the details together. So first the channel ID. This we're getting it from the route. Now we need a photo URL. This will come from the authentication. Offstate.photo URL. The sender. As we know, sometimes we don't have the display name when the user just create his account or didn't update his profile. So we're going to call the offstates. First, we're gonna try the name, and if not, we're gonna give it the email. So the sender ID is the ID. Sender is not current user ID. Here's the ID. So message. This will come from our component, this dot message. So let's add this message hook to the input. On the input field, let's add the ng model. And this will send the data, whatever the data is, to our component.ts. This will send in here, and we are gonna grab it down here. Okay, let's continue. Now message service, and we're gonna call the send message, and we're gonna pass all this information. Need the channel ID, photo URL, sender ID. We need to send this in the right order, because if you mess it up, you're gonna get different results in there. And after this is done, we're going to reset message. So whenever someone sends something here and send, this is gonna get empty again. And as we're not returning anything, let's make it void. And that's our send. Let's go back in our component.html and create a click event in here. When someone clicks the button, we're gonna call that function we just created. Send. So let's test. And the reason we're getting this error is because we're here on the service, we are using the message collection, but the message collection has a filter in here, so that is bound to break our app. We need to rebuild the address down here instead of calling it from the collection, just like that. So if you test again, message sent. Now here in the database, we can have a look. We have our chats. We got a null in here because, yes, we don't have an ID yet. There's nothing in the browser. And then we have our message, and that's our message. Test, sent by me, and the timestamp. Now let's continue. It would be nice when the person press enter in here to send the message. If someone just want to use the keyboard and just press enter to send the message, let's add this functionality now. On our chat input component.ts, let's create a handle submit function. And here we take an event, which is the key DAO. And if there is an event, we're gonna get the code from it. If it's 13, and this code is not like a random. This is the default code for the key enter in a keyboard. If you do a quick Google search, you're gonna find all the keys that you can use. So if that is equal to the enter key that the user pressed, we're going to use this function here. Now back in our chat input HTML, we're going to add a key DAO event. This comes from Angular. Angular is going to be watching when the user presses a key. And here we're going to use that handle submit function we create. And here we're going to pass the event back to our function. So let's try it. So test. And if I press enter, message sent. Let's console log the event. So I'm going to test again. Now I'm going to press enter. And we have a keyboard event. Key was enter. Code was enter. And here we have the key code 13. So this is where that code 13 comes from. It's from the keyboard event on the key enter. So now you can just send a message by pressing enter, or you can send a message by pressing the button. Let's go. Let's continue. We're done with the chat input. Now let's work in the message that we need to be displaying over here. So in our message service, we create this get message. Let's hook it up on our component with a get message. So here we need to get the channel ID from the URL. So this .route, we've done this many times already. Let's import it first before our editor start to complain. So we need that activate routes. And now let's import the rest as well. We need to import a message and our message service. And let's get the observable as well. So we have where to store the message array that we're going to receive. Here, let's create this message array, message observable. Sorry. Here's a message. That will be an array of messages. Okay, in the constructor, let's create the link to the message service and route. And again, these two, you can name it whatever you like. Name route. So let's continue with the route. Let's get the snapshot, then the params map, and get the ID. Now with the ID, let's grab the message from the service. And we're gonna store in the observable. This .message service. Call the function we create in there, message. And inside, we're gonna add the channel ID. And if you remember on our service, we ask the channel ID to be able to retrieve the message. So that's the only thing we need to send it back to the service. And we are ready. So let's call it in here on the ng-on-init to initialize the observable when your component is created. Now let's add the HTML so we can see something. In the HTML, we're going to add a for loop. So we get all the messages. So ng-for let message of message, and you're going to use the async pipe as well. Okay, so now here, let's think. We could add the message straight in here, one by one, like a loop of or an ordered list, for example. But we create this chat message component so we can decouple the single message and the message array. And inside this for loop, we're going to add the app message. Now we get a list of chat message works. This is coming from the HTML. That's what's written in there. And this And the reason why is 5 of them. That's because in our database we have 5 messages. So now let's get the actual information from this message. To display our message, we're going to use this material design component list, so we can display in a nice manner. As you can see, scroll down, we have with avatars and stuff, which looks pretty good. This you save a lot of time, so you don't need to do it by hand. It will be something like this. So let's get the API import thing and add it to our material list. There. Just save it in the chat message, and here we're going to start to create our display list. It's a mat list and a mat list item. And inside the item, we're going to have the image for the avatar. That's the message.photo URL. To avoid the error where the image is not loaded for Angular, we're going to add the same trick we did before. It will create that fake file system address to display while the message is not working. For the out, let's use a message sender. Now let's create a line. I'm gonna put the message content. Another line. And inside, I'm gonna create a small tag and display the timestamp. And here, I'm gonna also add that from now pipe we built before. You're gonna get an error because the message in here is not done, because we need to get this information from the message list. So in here we need to pass a message for it. Message equals message. And now back in our component, in our chat message, we need to start to create the hooks that will get this information. So first we need to get this message from somewhere. We're going to use that input again, so we can get this info here. So here let's add the input. Message. Let's import the message. Message module. So in the constructor, let's get the message service and also the authentication service, so we know who is sending the message. Okay, it was auto imported. Great. Now if you save, you should get the messages in here. Yes, we have it, but they look ugly. Let's add the CSS that comes with the mat list item. For the image, there's a mat list avatar, and this is all in all this stuff is inside the documentation. When you copy we can copy the examples, and it's over there. Mat line, and let's add a mat line in here as well. Now that's much better. You have that from now. If you remove that from now, you see that ugly type of timestamp again. One thing I didn't mention before is that Angular has its own pipes. So here in the Angular website, if you do a date search, you're gonna see here a date pipe, and here there are a few options you can use. Let's try the medium. So in here you'd have to pass the pipe again, call it date, and here pass the median like this. And you have like that. You can try the different ones from the website, like a long or also there's one called full time. So this is a few built-in pipes you can use. So enough of it. Let's continue. Now we have our message. Let's send a new message. Test, and it appears in there. Perfect. And every time you send a message, it scrolls down. Let's remove this console login here to clean up our code. That was from the input. Yeah. Okay. So we're done in here. Next, we're going to learn how to create the threads, and we're also going to add a button where the user is going to create the channel ID in here, so we can actually have a reference for it.